close out this episode with a game I've actually played before, but not beat. I'm doing the first half of Pac-Man World. This is one of the 3 games that came with my PlayStation 1 back on Christmas '99. It wasn't the one I played the most, but it also wasn't the one I played the least of the 3. There's actually a story to this game too. Pac-Man's dog, Chomp Chomp, yeah he's got a dog, is coming in with a birthday present, finds a hole in the ground and gets dragged in. And he's not the only one. Pac-Baby and the Puka from Dig Dug are dragged up into the air by an anchor, Professor Pac-Man is abducted by aliens, Junior Pac-Man's hat is stolen, followed by the rest of him. And finally, while setting up the table for Pac-Man's 20th birthday dinner, even though this game came out on his 19th anniversary, don't even know you're an husband, Miss Pac-Man is taken by a familiar shape. Also, I just noticed that even though Pac-Man's dog looks like he belongs in the same world, along with this bird at the beginning of the intro, he also has just a regular real-life cat. Pac-Man comes home from what I assume is work, but I just wonder, what does he do? He sees a birthday present just left on the floor and his house is a mess and family gone. With that, we can start the game. Quest is the main game, Mazes I'll get to next episode, and Classic is just the original arcade Pac-Man game, which I'll not be doing because it's just a bonus and doesn't unlock anything in this game, which is what I'm doing despite how much sense it makes to start with that game. One more cutscene though before we really start. Pac-Man finds an invitation for a party on Ghost Island, also claims he will be there in person. On Ghost Island itself, one ghost spots Pac-Man approaching on a boat. He rushes down to the party and reports to his boss, Tockman, this giant robot thing that seems to be trying to become Pac-Man.
The Pac-Man! I mean that pathetic fool, trying badly I might add, to impersonate you, who is clearly the real Pac-Man.
I thought you had captured Pac-Man!
We did, see? Oops.
Turns out the plan was to just capture Pac-Man, not his family. Okay, I get that Pac-Man's family look mostly the same, but the dog, and the Puka. After that intro, I put right into the first level, Buccaneer Beach. Right away, we're shown that the dots and power pellets from the arcade game transitioned over into the platforming, along with collectible fruits and even some little maze areas. Of course, the power pellets turn ghost blue and let Pac-Man eat them. In this game, it refills his health too. One of Pac-Man's main skills in this game is the butt bounce. It does things you would expect it to do, kill enemies and reach higher platforms. The dots can also be used as projectiles and even charged up to cause a small explosion. I don't use it that often though. The swimming too, no air to deal with thankfully. Holding the button while surfacing causes a high jump. After pressing a couple switches, we run into some badoings. They lead me to this area that contains the other power-up of the game, Chrome Pac-Man. As you'd expect, it makes him invincible and allows him to walk underwater for a short period of time. And finally, the last technique, the Rev Roll. It's basically like the spin dash from Sonic, lets him go up hills and ram himself into enemies. Although I'd say it's the least useful way of taking on enemies. They move and Pac-Man always shoots off in a straight line, so it leaves the butt bounce as the more accurate attack. The other use of the Rev Rolls and these Rev Pads, there's a few different kinds, some like this open gate, some are floating platforms, or elevators as the game calls them. After pressing a pair of blue switches, a dot with an arrow appears. These make Pac-Man fly through the entire chain of dots, usually with a reward during it, such as a fruit. The last thing this level teaches is the fruit doors. Swap the fruit shown on the dot for the reward inside. Nothing significant here since this is just a tutorial level. With myself reminded of everything in the game, I walk into the token that ends the level. After beating the level, we get this machine that takes all the dots and remaining fruit we collected and use them to try and win more lives with a slot. I just end up mashing the button to get through it. Now we're on the hub world of Ghost Island for the first time. I don't actually have to do the game in order, I have access to the first 3 sets of levels from the beginning, but I'm going to do it in the boring normal way. Next up is Corsair's Cove. Now I have the chance, I'd like to praise the soundtrack, or at least the fact that Tommy Tallarico managed to get so much use out of those few short jingles from the arcade games. Like the intro, and the intermission jingle. Along with the intro from Miss Pac-Man. I thought the title screen music being the first intermission theme from Miss Pac-Man. It was something I didn't notice playing this for the first time back when I was 7, but nearly 20 years later, I appreciate the effort. Eventually I open a strawberry door for another collectible, letters. Considering the first one is a P, I think you can guess what it's going to spell. The A, I found an underwater chest I need the chrome power up to open. Eventually I worked my way up to the rooftops and dropped down to find the C behind another strawberry door. A little later I passed the door with the Galaxian starship. These ones are especially important. I backtrack a tiny bit to find I nearly missed the M, and the cherry, along with the cherry door that creates a chain of dots onto the other side. Said chain takes me to the starship and the second A. I open the door and am taken to a maze. Every level has a maze based around the theme of the level. Most of these are a little easier than a regular Pac-Man maze since you still have a health bar instead of just dying in one hit. But some of them can be bastards, as you'll see later. Gotta do them all for 100%. It does sting a little bit though, dying just before grabbing the last dot. With it picked up, it's back to the level. I get the end by bouncing off this barrel onto this big post, which means that's all the collectibles in the level. Well, not quite. This chest underwater has a key in it. There's one of these in each world, and they're for freeing Pac-Man's stolen family. The keys aren't always in the same level as them though. But thankfully they're never in a level after the one the family member is in, so no having to replay levels just to open a single cage. After opening one more strawberry door and pressing the button to activate the cannon switch, I blow up the cage, keeping me from the token and end the level. Collecting all the letters in the level transports you to a bonus level. Each world has its own unique one, the part one involves cutting fruit and lives underwater in the time limit. Third level is Crazy Cannonade. Things getting a little harder, water has been swapped out to the bottomless pits, but it's still easy. Except for this one tiny section of roof kicking my ass. The roof in question having a set of switches that makes the P appear on top of it, followed by the A being in the barrel a little later. You know, I don't think I even had trouble with these sections as a shitty kid, but jumping across the tops of these cannons still makes me nervous as hell. Right after them is an apple, I have to backtrack to the door to get the C. I still have to jump across the cannons again though. Why is it throwing me off? It's easy. It was nothing compared to this terrifyingly close jump right after. A door leading to an upper area gets me the Galaxian ship and into the maze. It's a basic maze, I had an easier time doing this one than the first one though. To make up for that, I suffer what I'm hoping is going to stay the most embarrassing death I have, except for maybe my nervousness around the cannons being proven right. However, I realised I missed something and quit the level to start again. You see, there was an apple door near the Galaxian door and I was keeping an eye out for the apple to open it. I figured out I'd most likely gone way too far into the level and missed it. Turns out I was on a plank poking out really close to the door. I was right to go up and get it since that door had the end behind it. This time I get that banana on top of the cannon without dying and use it on the door next to them to get the second A. Then just barely miss the next cannon, then undershoot the jump and gently roll to my doom. After making it across I get one more power up that's so rare I forgot about it until I was writing this, the explorative butt bounce. And close to the end I find the N hidden just off to the front of the screen. Then after getting back up, realise it isn't that hidden and I was going that way anyway. After taking a elevator up an exploding tower, I find the Puka and free it with the key. That thing is a lot smaller than it looked in the intro. Right next to it is the goal. After leaving the level, I chat to Puka one more time before it leaves, and then to the first boss level, HMS Windbag. It starts simply enough, being chased and avoiding fire from a flying pirate ship with angry eyes on its sail. You can all relate. Next section has a series of blue switches for reflecting cannon fire. Gotta time it right though because I don't stay up very long. It also has the easiest to avoid attack ever, with 4 cannonballs and the fruit slowly making their way up to each of the switches. About 5 or so hits altogether and it goes down. That leaves me at 13% of the game complete. This was a fun world. Share that on the next one. Once I'm out, I leave the pirate world behind for the ruins. I'm just going to say this is the worst part of the game. You wouldn't think that though after just seeing the first level, Crisis Cavern. This one isn't too bad, but there are some things that will become far worse after this level. Not another level long before a chain of dots brings me to the P, there's also a lot of walking around in the dark on this level. Next up are the pressure pads to drop rocks on you. But it didn't cause me much trouble here though. A dot chain created by the switch in a fruit door leads me to a short set of platforms with the first A at the end. After that we're into the lava section and maybe this is my most embarrassing death. Once I'm back into a normal ruin section I meet my biggest enemy so far. These tiles almost instantly slam a spike on your head with no chance to react. There's a lot of these in the next level. Going down and I find the sea hidden away in this dark area. And right after I get another one of those tiles that blends in with the brown floor and the lack of light. The only clue is a water drop, but you may get it on screen in between drops and end up with no warning. Or you just end up with this one here where it's almost impossible to see. At the end of this awful area I find the M behind a cherry door, and in this nice trap-free area a blue button behind the bell door makes a elevator appear. This one brings me down to the second A. Does anyone else hope Pac-Man's mother is called Pac-Ma? After making my way across a series of elevators I find a switch behind a fruit door that opens a hole into the swimming section. At the end of it is a chrome power-up so I can go back and break the chest for the Galaxian ship. I don't have to take it very far though since the door for it is right by the exit of this area. This is where the mazes start getting evil. See those rocks falling from the ceiling? And I have both hazards and ghosts to deal with at the same time. Not too bad this one, but I was killed by a falling rock once. And right after I leave I get given this spiked log with really dodgy collision. Another fruit door with a switch in it gives me one more elevator to another door with the N in it before I can finally leave this place. The ruins bonus level involves navigating elevators past steam pipes to collect fruit. Getting up is a bit annoying, but going down with the chrome power up from the top is much better. That's actually the first time I've ever beaten that level. As a kid I beat the pirate world and all but the boss in the third, and I'm only stalling so I can hold off talking about Manic Mines, the worst level in the game. Starts off simply enough. Go down a slope, pass a door, get an apple, go back and open the door for the P. Then it's navigating a dark area with trapped tiles to open the melon door for the first A. I actually got a little lost here since it was so dark. Getting out of that and actually being able to see things again was the only happy moment I had in this level. And it was ruined when one of these surprisingly difficult to time jumps over a minecart killed me. Then needing to backtrack up a slope with a rev roll got me killed by a ghost I had no way of knowing would be in that spot. After opening that door and eating all the ghosts there, I go back down the slope and swap an orange for the sea. In that same section I get the ship and enter the maze. This time the hazard is burning rocks bursting from the lava. Thankfully they make up for it with less dots than the last one. I make my way up and away from the lava, and I find the aim on the inside of another fruit door. Then it's dodging tornadoes and missing the moving platforms when they get close. After that it's getting my ass kicked by the corner of the bedawing. Imagine if this were being put on the internet for everyone to see. That'd be so embarrassing. At the top I get a fruit and have to backtrack to the section with the tornadoes. It wasn't worth it though, because it was just for some dots. Continuing forward, I open this door to reveal another Galaxian door. You see, every other world in this game is 3 levels and the boss, but the ruins is just 2 levels, which left an extra maze without a level to put it in, so this one has 2. Right below the door is an underwater maze. This is where I discovered if you press the jump button while wiggling left and right, you can rocket up the water. Once again, I have to find the chrome parrot to break the underwater chests and get the second ship. This maze is easy, which is why I got hit 3 times within the first few seconds. I was just making up for the lack of hazards, honest. Despite that, I managed this one without dying. Want some utter bollocks though? Rev-rolling up a ramp that drops you right below a crusher. The damage on the way back up too. After navigating this area, I get the fruit of the door holding the second A. Next up is the part that almost made me have a meltdown. See this door here? I need a banana. That's not the whole story, by the way. Apparently I'm supposed to eat all the ghosts in the area where Chomp Chomp is being held to make it appear. But it travels and I die looking for it. I can't get it back, because even though the dots and the pellets reappear after dying, the ghosts don't. Fun fact, I didn't even notice it floating around the corner of the maze until watching this back. I actually had no clue as to why this was happening. This is right at the end of the level, by the way. Got no choice but to leave and redo the last 20 or so minutes. After working my way back, including getting all the other letters and doing both mazes again, I get it, but get killed again. Although I do keep the banana, there's still a problem. So I use the banana to get to a blue switch to make a elevator appear that gets me to the key so that I can free Chomp Chomp. So what about this other banana door right before the level goal with the last letter in it? Notice I died before eating all the ghosts this time. I think getting all of them in one go would make a second appear, but since I only got one chance at that, it's time to end the level and go through it all a third time. I go through it all again, collecting all the letters again, then use my one banana left to get the end. About an hour and a half I spent on that level and fuck it right off. But at least things are gonna get better now? No. Because I still had the boss to deal with, Anubis Rex. It starts off with a chase sequence, Pac-Man running away from an FPS mummy hand and dodging spears. There's not much to say about it, it's short and not very difficult, sometimes I accidentally walk into the side of a spear. The main problem is the main fight. It involves jumping across lava-filled gaps with rocks shooting up and using the rev pads to open up the stone hands. There are 4 rev pads to use before the heart appears, but you've got to rev roll into it quick. Try butt bounce or just do it in more than 3 trillionths of a second and it slams shut on you. Hitting the heart destroys one of the gems on its forehead. Second phase has it spitting out tornadoes. They float above lava and are almost undodgeable. You could jump over to the next platform while it temporarily sinks below into the gaps, but that just means there's a good chance a rock will be out and you're hitting that instead. You'd think staying on the phase you're already on when you die would make it better. Not really. Especially not when Pac-Man is clearly above the platform then suddenly snaps into the side of it and falls to his death. I do manage to hit the heart this time too, only to get caught in the hands and dragged up to the nose where I'm killed despite still having health. And stage 3 keeps the tornadoes and has flaming rocks crashing into the rev pads too. This absolutely leaves me with situations where it's impossible to avoid damage. Can't forget about finally working through all that shit and opening up the hands for 83 hazards to block my path and run out my 10th of the microsecond time limit. That's not the last stage either. Stage 4 keeps all that stuff and adds a laser that sweeps the entire stage, giving me 4 to dodge at once and sometimes have me surrounded in every direction with no choice but to take damage. So everything I just described, imagine that going on for another half an hour. Between this and that last level I was starting to have doubts that this game was ever good, and I only thought it was because I was 7 when I first played it. I'm going to spoil things a little by saying that it's just this section of the game that I despised. I don't think this is a bad game at all, but after not playing it for years and being met with this so early in didn't leave things looking good. Don't know if it's true, but I've heard that the boss was unfinished and the developers ran out of time to balance it, and I think that could apply to this entire world. It explains why it has 1 less level and the second one having 2 mazes, it explains the dodgy collision I've experienced, it also explains how I could beat all the other levels available at the beginning as a kid, including all of the next world apart from the boss, but never get anywhere with this one. When I did it though, I think that's the most satisfying death of a giant stone head I've ever seen. I actually had to stop and take a break for a bit because I got so angry at the game. On a positive note, it's all uphill from here. Nothing anywhere near that bad will appear for the rest of the game. Time to move on to the third world, the space one, starting with Space Race. All of the usual space stuff is here, force fields and lasers and the like. The P is on a platform right next to the start. The first A is above these disappearing lasers, and the Galaxian ship is just out in the open here. After getting a cherry and backtracking to swap it for the C, I enter the maze. The big gimmick to this one is the disappearing and reappearing lasers. Kind of annoying actually having to just stop and wait for it to disappear before continuing. You know, after the last world, it felt nice to take damage from moving hazards and actually feel like it was my own fault. After climbing to the top of this wall, Vim appears after breaking this chest. And not long after, the second day is behind a banana door. It's also nice having a level take less than 15 minutes. Close to the end I get this terrifying moment where I got trapped on a corner with no life left, but barely managed to dodge the laser. Once I get to the top and temporarily turn them off, I can grab this bell and open the door at the bottom for the end. I did die on the way back up though. The goal is just past the laser switch. The space bonus stage has me hitting switches to create force fields to walk over to collect the fruit. Up next is Far Out. The first proper obstacle in this place roids up the disappearing laser obstacles from the last level as I demonstrate that my real world sense of self-preservation is much stronger than my in-game one. At least I hope so. The P's build a quickly disappearing force field I have to switch on, and I get hit twice in a row and killed by the most obvious telegraph hazard in the level. Up a laser-covered staircase I decide to shove my face into repeatedly, I find the Galaxian ship, and die backtracking to its door. At least that just put me right in front of it. This one has two different colours of lasers that disappear and reappear at separate times. Back in the main level I take a chain of dots over to this area where I have to dodge disappearing lasers while going on a elevator. Professor Pac-Man is at the top, but let's ignore him for now. After hitting a blue switch to activate one back at the bottom, I check out all these platforms I skipped on the way up. I do miss a couple on the way back down though. The second blue switch gives me the key, and on the way up I get the A. I free Professor Pac-Man, but there's still this apple door with C in it that I can't open. Thankfully the apple is only 10 seconds further into the level and I get the C. A little further on and breaking this chest makes the M appear, and a pair of blue switches on the opposite ends of these tilting platforms gives me the second A. And despite landing on the platform, I just fall through it and die. It's the only time in these space levels where I can say death wasn't my fault. The top of the next set of platforms has a chest with some bananas, which opens up this nearby door to give me the end. Last set piece of this level is turning a platform into a giant maze before finding the goal. After seeing off the old man, it's time for level 3, Gimme Space. And within seconds of starting I hit a switch to create a ball of light that teleports me to the P. Past some moving lasers and tilting platforms, I find the first A on a platform attached to a Bedoin. Also, this strawberry was terrifying since I had to precisely rev roll onto this platform and not bounce off to my death. And already I'm finding the C at the top. Right after I've created a circular maze which is far more nerve-wracking to walk along than it looks. Hitting another switch creates another portal. It drops me in front of a few platforms with a laser between them that never blinks out. I didn't figure out how to get past it unharmed, but they were kind enough to put quite a few pieces of health on there, so I just took the damage. At the top, pressing the switch creates 3 paths. The left path brings me to the M. The right path gives me the bell I need to open the door on the centre path for the second A. Back along the right path to continue the level. After climbing this tower I find the ship off to the side, also really close to the door. This maze has meteorites crashing down at certain spots. Easier than the last two I'd say, considering I did it without dying. Going towards the end of the level I carefully cling onto the ledge of this platform and drop down to get the end, despite it being far more convenient to just drop down the other side. After that it's just a couple size changing platforms and I finish the level. All that's left now is the boss, King Galaxian. This is going to give me some closure. I got to this guy 20 years ago but was never able to beat him, and I couldn't play the game for years because I was bad at taking care of my PS1 discs. Coming back to this also reminds me that this boss would be the first time I'd ever heard of Galaxian at all. Anyway, the level is actually a shooter, blowing up enemy ships and asteroids. It's fairly long too. Eventually I'm passing over a giant ship and dodging lasers, and at the end I meet King Galaxian himself. To deal with this guy I have to shoot out all of his eyes. He uses the tractor beam from Galaga to drag Pac-Man in for damage, add to that the Galaga music remix playing while fights him and the fact that he's shaped similarly to the original Galaxian sprite, this makes the boss fight appreciate a lot more now that I see the tributes in it. It can still be a challenge though, just a good challenge, not what Anubis Rex was. We're down to one eye, he starts spitting out aliens with force fields, which do kill me the first time. However, despite all that, I managed to prove that I at 26 am better at games than I was at 7. And what kind of self-improvements have you made in the last 20 years? That is where I'll be leaving this episode, currently at 42% completion with everything that's coming up next being completely new to me. So far this game is decent, but that second world does drag things down. We'll see how I feel next episode after I experience levels I never could reach back then.